This is Seminar Group, and this is Mark Hammond. Hi. Yeah.
Right, what we're going to do then is tell you a little bit about how we set this business up in 2010. Give you some views on setting businesses up in general, and then we can have a Q&A at the end of that. So this business is called Cares Capital, and it was set up in 2010. Prior to that, the team at Cares worked at HBOS, a bank which you probably know a reasonable amount about if you've been reading the papers. And during the time that we were at HBOS, from the year 2000 to 2008, we invested in a whole bunch of UK-based businesses in the form of management buyouts. We made about 90 investments and invested about £1.8 billion into these 90 companies. And by 2007, we sold about 50 of these investments. And then the liquidity problems in the UK economy started, and HBOS ran out of money, and a fairly well documented story, which you've read a great deal about. That culminated in HBOS being bought by Lloyds Bank in September 2008, and our business became, quite quickly after that, a non-core part of Lloyds Bank. So that's a part of the bank that they bought, but that they didn't want, and they weren't going to invest any further in it. Non-core businesses generally don't stay very long inside large companies, and indeed, having decided it was non-core, they decided to sell it. So at the time, we had about 40 investments left, and they were sold to some new investors for around £500 million. And at that point, the new investors asked us to form a company to manage these investments and to sell them over the ensuing 5 years. And that's the business plan for Cares. Acquire 40 separate investments and sell them individually by the summer of 2015. So we had to form a company in order to do that, and we formed this business called Cares Capital, as I said, just over 3 years ago in August 2010. Three key things that we had to do to form that company. Two less important than the other one. Deal with the less important ones first. Property, we had to find somewhere to run this business from. We had to fit it out. The building that I'm now sitting in was a shell. It's just off Piccadilly in Mayfair, and it was a shell business, so we had to fit the property out. We had to find IT systems that worked, all from a standing start, and we had to get an HR function together for the 27 people that we employ. All of that from day one was something that we'd never done before, and took a fair amount of work. Regulation is the other kind of key feature of financial services businesses, so we had to get approval to run this business, and we did that through the FSA, as it was at the time. That body has now been renamed the Financial Conduct Authority, and we had to get a fair amount of legal advice in order to set that up. The most important thing we had to do was organise the cash flow of the business, and by far the most important advice I could give anyone that's setting up a business is make sure you don't run out of money. For us, that was relatively straightforward because our investors gave us guaranteed fees, therefore guaranteed income, to run this business with every month. Setting up a business with guaranteed income is 10 times easier than setting up a business from scratch when you don't know what your income is going to be. So we knew at the outset of setting up this business that with the amount of money that we were going to have every month to pay our costs, and our costs are nearly all salaries. Because they're nearly all salaries, we've got a very good idea as to what our monthly costs are going to be, and the rest of them are the cost of the property, which again are known, and the cost of travel, which are a little bit variable. But it was as straightforward an operation as it could be in setting up a business, because we knew what the income was going to be, and we pretty much knew what the costs were going to be. It's still a daunting task to set up a business from scratch, but it's much, much easier if you know what what your income is going to be. So the most important advice I could give in setting up a business would be make sure you don't run out of money, make sure you don't spend more than you're going to take in, and if you've got to do that, start a business very cautiously and very slowly. So that's our story, that's how we set up Cared. Happy to answer any questions about how Cared formed, or indeed anything else I can tell you about the whole concept of setting up a business.
Thank you, Mark. So a few people have got some questions for you. Jack?
How do you persuade banks to back your idea?
How do you persuade banks to back your idea?
With difficulty. Banks generally aren't the right people to back new businesses. And the reason for that is that they're only interested in lending money if for certain they're going to get it back. So our idea was relatively straightforward because it guaranteed income. So we were able to get bank finance because it was very, very straightforward for them to see what the profits of this business were going to be. But in the ordinary sense, I think banks are not the first destination I would go to for funding to set up a business. The types of places you might go would be business angel networks, perhaps private equity firms. You probably use your own resources. In a very small business, people go to friends and family before they go anywhere else. But banks generally only take on new businesses once they've been a little bit better established. They're very unlikely to lend money to a brand new startup.
Thank you. Next. Sir?
How valuable is a business degree to employers like yourselves?
How valuable is a business degree to employers like yourself?
Very. I think my degree's in economics and accountancy. I'm a chartered accountant in training. But I think the more that you understand about business before you get into business, the more valuable it's going to be. So I would rather employ a graduate with a business degree than a graduate with an arts degree. And that's a kind of personal choice. You will find other employers that have a different view. But I think you're studying one of the most relevant things that you can study if you want to have a career in business.
Thank you.
Does anyone
Yeah.
see me if you want?
It's a pretty generic question, but how much money do you reckon you need to start your own business?
Potentially, not very much. Depends what you want to do. You could expect though to need all the money that you've got, which is why it's quite high risk. But you can start a business with just a few £1,000s if you want to.
I just wanted to know,
What type of risk should you consider if you're starting your own business?
Principal risk is that it won't work. So if you're going to do it, you need to have a very solid business plan. And some of this businesses, that's about having a product that people are going to want to buy, want to sit down, people are going to want to buy. But biggest risk is the costs that exceed your income, the early stages. And so you really do need to control any time you spend.
And what do you look for in a CV from a potential employee?
What do you look for in a CV from a potential employee?
My point of view, first and foremost, good education. So for young people coming out of university, that's a quality of A-levels, quality of degree, and quality of university that they came from. Beyond that, to have a good CV, I think you need to have a relevant work experience. We've been able to find some. So I think the way that people have used gap years is quite important. The way that people have used summer vacation time is important. The variety of different things that they've done. The variety of different interests that they've got. So your CV has to look as if you're a fairly active person. Rather than someone that only has hobbies and interests. So the most important part for me is education and work experience.